I may decide I'm not going to meditate today. One day it's no big deal. 2, 3 days, 2 months, look at me. I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, I'm rubbing my nose. And that's a light price to pay.
Yeah.
Thoughts matter.
Thoughts do matter.
Thoughts are free. What the hell? Why? The one thing that's free and could be so abundantly used is so easy to not. It's taken for granted because for me, myself, is I like things right away.
Welcome back to the Meta Moments with me, Pasha, and Michael Joy.
How come you don't say your last name?
I don't know. I don't want to say I don't like my last name, but
Okay.
I'll tell you a little secret. In Russian, my last name means stinky bug.
Oh.
Or like bed bug.
Oh.
Klop is like bed bugs or stink bug.
So
yeah.
in Hollywood, you get to choose your own names. So
Boom.
there you go. Choose one.
Big P. That's what people...
McPeen?
Yeah. Big P.
Okay. All right. Anyways.
Cat sucks.
Yeah.
We got cats.
Katya, as I mentioned, I got scolded today.
Mm-hmm.
Katya is saying, how come your clothes don't fit? Your shoes on camera look terrible. And I always don't like the idea of having the bottom of my shoe show to the camera. In some parts of the world, showing the bottom of your shoe to somebody is insulting. And so I thought, well, I get all these cat socks from Katya, so.
Those look great.
Yeah, Jan and I were on a riff about faith and trust, so we're going to let that stay on her thread. Yes. You and I are on a riff about business and the importance of listening to your inner voice, but I don't know if you wanted to go into that more, or different topics about what happened in Arizona.
We have different topics. We have plenty of different topics to talk about this time, and I have quite a few questions. One of the questions is the continuation of the previous conversation about business. I asked you about, do you believe in hypnosis?
Yeah, oh, you're right.
And you were like, oh, let's talk about it. I'm like, nah, time.
So hypnosis, I became exposed to hypnosis at Creative Guidelines when I was about 16 in high school. And Creative Guidelines, for those of you who don't know what it was, in those days it was in the 80s, late 80s. So self-help was the big phrase back then. And it was the introduction to connectivity to spirituality through the subconscious mind. And so Don Weldon, the organizer of Creative Guidelines, used hypnosis, and he taught everybody self-hypnosis in order to get to the subconscious quicker, to change habit patterns, improved quality of thought, and things of this nature. And so I experienced hypnosis many times, but I don't recall having any experience like the YouTube on stage, float like you're heavy as can be, someone's coming at you fast. I've never had those experiences. It was much more subtle, just to improve the quality of my thoughts.
Can you give us a gist of how to self-hypnotize to have better thought process, positive thoughts? How does that work?
I can't. Here's how I'll answer it. Until I get clear on what liabilities there are. Because somebody reminded me, they said, if you're teaching, and I'm not a hypnotist, I can only tell you what I experienced, Don's method was. And it was basically, we were in a classroom, and he had this sort of memorized relaxation technique, and it would count down, starting at 7, deeper, down, and then he would slow, and he'd give a guided visualization of relaxing, coming up through the feet and knees, and so the nice thing is I have a lot of that on tape, so maybe we edit in a piece of that.
Tape as in audio recording?
Yeah, because they were tape cassettes then.
Right.
And what he would do for each class is he would adjust the suggestions. The relaxation into a hypnotic state was always the same. And that became very comforting in a way, because after somebody took many classes, it's just like, oh, here we go. And then boom, you can get to this relaxed state. It was, like I said, it was not hypnosis entertainment. It was just a calming and a trained calming.
Yes.
And then the suggestions were already in class on the curriculum. We had already read them during the class, and then he gave some suggestions to that. And then our homework, he used to call grow work, would be doing that every day of the week until the next class. And so each one built upon the other, built upon the other, built upon the other. And from his perspective, that was creating a foundation, because he thought that if you don't start with a healthy subconscious mind, it's undisciplined, it doesn't have a lot of, it's just like, I want this, and, shaky feet, hands, all this sort of nervousness that everybody, ADD is now a thing.
Right.
That settled that through, and it was an acknowledgement that I'm going to learn, I want to learn, I'm going to listen, I want these suggestions. In the same way that people can hypnotize themselves with negativity and not even realize it. You're driving down the street and you're pissed off at something and forget you're even driving. It's like, what just happened?
Can't have been there, but I probably have.
That's hypnosis happens all day. I think that the unique thing that's happening in the marketing industry is that what used to work doesn't, and people are saturated. And now I think there's a lot of this programming running in the background of a lot of people's minds that's just kind of been like a graveyard. It's just left there to, I don't listen to that anymore. I don't listen. They're overwhelmed, and nothing was ever cleaned out. And hypnosis can also be used to kind of clean something out, but it's not you just take away someone without your permission. And oftentimes it was more about replacing than taking away. It was taking a thought and enhancing it or improving the quality.
I need that.
It's like improving the soil in your garden.
I'm asking, hey, give me a gist of how to do it. Not only just for myself, but I know a lot of people do struggle with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, depression. And if there's a way to improve the quality of your thought process, in my opinion, which is probably very loud at this very moment, but depression is self-induced most of the time, right? It's all in your head in a way. And ultimately you can help yourself feel less depressed by doing certain things, one of which could be that hypnosis that helps you think clearer and more positive.
Well, I think that there's probably a lot of different levels of depression, and some are seemingly untouchable for some people.
Okay.
That
you're right. Of course,
there's chemical things, but I do agree that they come from they're thought centric. I think that where this is just an insulting stab at it is I travel on a different timeline in the sense of my understanding, my belief in reincarnation. So this idea that someone says, well, they're clinically depressed, they've tried medicine, they've tried all these things, and I'm wondering, is there a carryover from a previous life? Is there some conditioning that is not aware of? And there was a lot of research done on psychotropic, like mushrooms and things like this for depression and trauma that were very good. There's a show on Netflix, well, there's many now, but I think it was called Changing Your Mind. It was about the research. There's one called Fabulous Fungi. There's a lot of these things about medicinal interactions with depression. And I don't know where that falls for everybody, but it's just interesting that that's coming around after the war on drugs. Now, the type of depression that you're talking about, I pick up as just kind of this just is I'm in the mud.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, this young guy that worked with me, he would have these swings.
Right.
And I kept saying, your car is good, you just got mud on the windshield.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, let's talk about the mud. And I'm like, dude, I didn't grow up with you. I mean, you're mud, you're the one that you got to look into that. And some people can and some people can't. And there's others that are just I don't even want to look. Just get someone to clean off the mud. This is the emotion code thing that we talked about.
That might help. I don't know, ultimately, I've had experience with it, and I don't know if it helped, and I don't know if I'm still being helped or not, but at this very moment, I have the mud. You know what I'm saying? I have little things add up, and together they make me feel nothing's gone right.
Well, let me keep going on your question about self-hypnosis, because I kind of went around saying there's different types of depression, and there's different approaches. I don't know, I'm not quite sure if talking about depression is endlessly is the thing. Talking about a problem seems like it is almost scratching the groove a little deeper for some people. Yeah. And the nice thing is about self-hypnosis, there are many programs out there commercially available. There's Kelly Howell, the Brain Sync. She uses sound wave technology, theta wave technology, if I'm calling it right, to bring you into this this dream theta state that allows your brain to accept suggestions. And then she has different programs for positivity, maybe body image, all these sorts of things. They're commercially available. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just download them from her site, maybe at a nominal charge, but she's providing a great service. I've used those. I was introduced to those through when I was dating my ex, who was a psychiatrist. And I was so surprised that a psychiatrist was recommending this, but it was really, there was a whole program there. The thing is about your depression that you're called, we'll just throw it like that.
Yeah.
Question is what are you doing consistently to address it? So if you have one of those tape programs, the CDs, the downloads, whatever we call them these days, right? Can you make the commitment to stay with it? Because it's repetition.
Yeah, it's like meditation. A lot of people suggested meditation for me, you know, and there's all sorts of meditations out there. There's like spiritual ones, there's non-spiritual ones where you just clear your mind completely, you know, and people kept suggesting it and I have never tried it.
Well, I think if you're someone that's able to jump into meditation, that's great. But a lot of people, it's no bueno.
It's hard.
It is. And so I think there's a lot of little steppers into it. And maybe it can start just with listening to something while you fall asleep. It can be maybe listening to something different while you're working instead of the music or this or that. Maybe there's some sort of subliminal something. There's many things that your brain can kind of multitask on, so to speak. And if those get you towards meditating, they help you get settled. They help sort of take the static charge out of the air. Then maybe that's a great place to start. Other people relax differently. It could just be taking time off, take some time away from the kids, go take a trip. You know, these are kind of action-oriented things, which meditation is a little bit the opposite of.
Right.
But if it gets a person to the place of it, I didn't meditate all of May. Where are we now? In July. May and June, I didn't meditate.
Wow.
Do you see me sick ever since I worked here?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time you see me sick. Well, it's absolutely testimony for me being out of balance, and I had some catalysts.
It's very busy.
Well, just thoughts, disruptive thoughts, and I could talk about that in a minute. But the depression, coming back to it, is first off is your interest and not being owned by it. And I feel like the things that you've talked about, anxiety and depression that you've struggled with. I mean, you changed cultures, man. You moved here from somewhere else, and
that was a big shock.
Yeah, so you got kind of scrambled there, to say the least, on top of whatever is in your life that I don't know about. So anything that keeps you open to it is a start, but then doing something about it. It's you'll schedule Frisbee golf, but will you schedule?
Right. I got a psychologist.
So this is
psychologist.
Psychologist is more about therapy of talking.
As you mentioned, for some people, it's like scratching the same problem and it just comes up and it's not a good thing. Or it could be in some cases.
Depends on the therapist. It depends on the therapist.
I have great therapists. I've been there. I've been to men's group where it's just men sitting around talking about whatever, you know, sharing each other's experiences, well, their own experiences with each other. Learning how to improve relationships in life in general, not just like with women, but like friendships, work relationships, etc. That was great. And then I decided to do one-on-one personal sessions, therapy. Mm-hmm. And I've done a couple of them. For me, it scratches the surface of my problem, making me think about it more. And it's like, I don't want to think about it. I want to get rid of it. But I guess there is no way of getting rid of it unless you work through it in some way.
I don't know about that.
But I don't understand that. Like, I can't work through it.
So some people are very responsive to this kind of talk therapy.
Yeah.
The attention and the attention to who they are, sort of a validation that is very valuable. Mm-hmm. I think that has to do with the skill of the person and what they're saying in return, and if they're able to draw out insights from yourself. So talking works for many. Mm-hmm. For me, there's a point where talking did that, now it's time for something else. Like, okay, we brought a lot of things to the surface and, you know, I shined a light on a lot of stuff. That was very helpful. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you find another type of therapist that is equally helpful. If you're talking to somebody who really just makes sense to you, that's gold, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
But it's so expensive for a lot of people, and it's not an option. You talked about, is there a way to flush it? And this is what the emotion code is about. It's thinking about the thoughts as energy, not just thought words. And that energy is stuck, it's blocked, and it's blocked in different parts of the body, different organs, there's different energetic systems in the body that are connected.
I have something to add. My therapist that I talked to said that there is a way to work certain problems and issues out, not just through talking, but through like a, I don't remember what he called it. I think it's not like touch therapy. It's like touch therapy, but basically certain parts of the body, they like, I don't know if they massage it or if they like touch it a certain way, and it like releases that certain thought in some way. As you say, is energy. It's stuck somewhere in the body.
Yes,
like,
well, this is why acupuncture is very valuable.
Right.
Because there are these energy pathways. And in fact, you don't always need needles. The points are there.
Yeah, you can touch it, you can squeeze it, pinch it, whatever.
I used to do acupuncture every week for years for my vision, and it turned out that it was more than my vision was being treated. So this is the beautiful thing, is you have so many options in this culture. You have talking, you have physical therapy, so to speak, touch therapy. That's really important for some people, because some people, I think, don't have human contact enough. Nobody, like today you were messing with Kay. That was really funny, where you shook his hand and you wouldn't let go. That was
I held his hand.
It was it was really funny. And you guys always, tease each other and stuff, so it's a good vibe. But other people, if you notice, you kind of come up to somebody and you touch them on the shoulder and they jump. Now, look, there's invading somebody's space, but if it's somebody you know and they're just either they're off somewhere else or they're just like they're not
energy.
Their field is not buffered. There's an aura. I believe we have an aura, which is an energetic field that extends beyond our body.
What color is mine?
I don't see auras. Sorry, bro.
Do you see auras ever?
No. There was a time when I was younger, I felt like I could, but I didn't know if it was just my bad vision or backlighting or something like that.
I see.
But I also haven't worked to try to develop that sensitivity. Maybe I will. I don't know a lot about auras, even if I saw them and I said, oh, you have there's a lot of green, but there's a lot of green in the room.
Right.
So
you like stop for a second, like, what are you looking at?
No, I mean, I see glows.
Yeah.
That's not, you see a glow around me?
I mean, to an extent, there's lighting.
See?
Right.
So hard to say. But I do see a radiation glow around you. So for me, with vision and contacts, I never knew if it was just sort of like when you go swimming, you get chlorine in your eyes and you're kind of that cloudy.
It's like a little blurry.
Yeah. So, but I see that. The thing is I wouldn't even know what to tell you. Let's say I said, oh, you got green here and this, that. What does it mean?
You just don't know.
I'm not the translator for that.
Yeah.
So let's get back to it. The many options for working through, and I think the word we're looking for is how to release.
Yes.
How to release the depression, how to release what's causing the depression or contributing to the depression. You know, my dad was a psychiatrist, right? Did I tell you about that?
Not Andy.
No. So my birth father,
Yes.
Jim Joy, he was a child psychiatrist. He was a pediatrician.
Yes.
And then he got into child psychiatry. He was more on the side of the chemical brain side, medicine part of psychiatry. A lot of controversy about that. And his partners were more on the talk side of psychiatry.
Psychology.
So there was their practices and things like this, but he was very, very well respected. He set up programs and stuff, but not a talker, And I didn't have a lot of time with him, so it's not like I got any training. But it was in the house, right? The vibe of thoughts are things, mental health care was easy to talk about. It was not taboo. But I think we're talking about release, and that releasing energetically. It's like, I mean, the picture that just came to my mind, I think I've mentioned it before. You go to a river, when you're hiking in the mountains, and there's this beautiful river, and it's just like gorgeous, right? The water's great. The sun is great, the sound's great, the water's clear, and a tree falls across the river. It's fine for a while until another piece of tree comes down and gets caught in it, and then another one gets caught in it. The river is fine, but there's all this stuff now that's catching. And then eventually it creates a block.
Well, damn.
Yeah, I think that those traumas are like that, those hits, energetic hits, the things that create distortions in our energetic field are those trees in the river. And there's other people who have said, yeah, your body has these diseases in it and these cancer cells and stuff, but with a healthy body, they just kind of move on through. I don't know a lot about that, but I'm kind of curious now. because the river metaphor makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I see it all the time, and then it starts growing moss, and then it's like, whoa, got to get out there with the chainsaw, cut that sucker out of there.
Right.
That's aggressive, but the water will find its way around those trees. I mean, there's always some, there's always, that won't stop, that energy won't stop, but it can be so, think of a corroded pipe.
Okay.
You have all this water going through the building. It's coming into the building under high pressure. Like, there's plenty of water.
Yes.
And then you get into the restroom, and then the pipes are corroded, and you're like, I can't even clean up. I can't even wash my hands. What's, you know, how do you clean that pipe? The bigger question is how do you not have the corrosion to begin with? And this is about self-hypnosis. The self-hypnosis is not only about kind of giving you a new shot at some new pipes, but keeping them clean, not letting those impacts, those hits. Something can happen to you today, and you get really pissed off. And let's say it happens in this building, and you're really pissed. You get in your car, it's with you.
Yeah.
You go home, it's with you.
Yeah.
It sticks.
I get that 100%.
Sticks.
Things happen and they stick with you. Like, I've had things happen to me years ago, and they're with me, not daily, but
so
doesn't matter where I'm at.
What allows that to release?
I wish I knew.
Some people
drink.
They
Sometimes it
distract.
makes it worse.
Right. Well, you just have a beer. I'm not talking about alcoholism drinking.
Right.
They go home and it's like, I just need to relax. They'll have a glass of wine. Something like this is common.
Yeah.
And maybe watch a TV show, kind of disconnect, turn off that stuff. It happens all the time. But that event didn't go away. It just, the symptoms of it. Yeah.
You just suppressed it.
Yeah. Like, oh man, how do lawyers do it? I don't know, man. Oh, you
How
gotta
do
be
lawyers do what exactly?
see injustice. And it's what it is. They're there. They're like, I don't know. They're built differently. Everybody processes problems differently.
Yeah.
I process some problems really well, and other problems like a child.
Same. I bet people are very similar to that extent, but the variety of problems and how people deal with them are different. So certain problems that you say you deal with as a child, someone can just done, you know? And some problems that you deal with like no problem, people are like, what do I do? How do I deal with it? People just have different experiences.
I think so, and different teachers, meaning their parents. If someone is young and has some healthy-minded parents around them that aren't over-investing, teaching them their fears. Some people, you know this don't talk to strangers thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, if that is never released with explanation to a person, it's like, that person's not going to talk to strangers because they're never going to feel safe. There's a place for it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know? But there's a point where the child is older and the messaging needs to change.
Yeah.
And it's not don't talk to strangers, it's here's how to understand what's going on with somebody.
Yeah.
Here's things to look for, subtle body languages. It's never going to be like this Superman X-ray vision, but give them some skills. You know, let that progress, and then maybe that leads into talking about relationships. But this parenting thing, I was in the kind of a early generation of divorced households, and so there wasn't too much talk about that. But we had male and female energy in the house for a certain amount of time. Even though my dad wasn't present a lot, it was in the house. And now there's a lot of women raising kids. I mean, Katya was like this, right? She had, how do you do it? She had she take Lana to pre-day school because the school doesn't open till 8, and Katya had to be work at 8, so that means you drop the kid off at 6:30. And then after work, there's an after-school program, and then pick up the kid, clean up the kid, feed the kid, cuddle the kid. Mom goes to the gym. So where is the time? And all of this creates this anxiety. Mom's exhausted, worried about something. Remember that story about money? The perception. Some parents nail it, but I'm just saying that I couldn't.
Story about money.
So there was I had a thing pop into my mind. I saw this happen. I was in the store, and one parent, the kid's grabbing stuff off the shelves. Did I tell the story too? Maybe it was Yana.
I think.
And the one parent was mad and says like, we ain't got no money for that, put it back. And literally the next aisle over, I pass over there, And that first mom had a lot of energy behind that. Like there was some money anger there, right? Understandable, but there was money anger there. Go to the next one, the kid's pulling stuff off the shelf and the mom says, we don't need that, put it back. One was teaching lack and anger. The other was saying, just keep your hands to yourself. We don't need that. Didn't say we couldn't afford it. It didn't create lack. It created, so parenting is a big deal. And I think that when institutions are looked at to parent, this is a big deal. This is what brings in religion into the schools. It brings in all these different moralities into the schools, and I don't think the educational system is made to hold that. But it's because our country wants a bunch of workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep them there, and the school systems to make more workers in some ways, but I think this is on its collapse. Collapse is the wrong word because it sounds like nothing's going to replace it. I'm going to say it's transitioning. Homeschooling was a big deal. I'm 55. Even when I was a kid, I went to Montessori, which was an alternative education, for sure.
Do you think it was better for you in that case?
Better it's a lot. I mean, I wasn't. I have no evaluative of that. I can tell you what I think as an adult.
Looking back at it from your perspective right now, do you think your choice of schooling was better than just traditional school that you could have gone to?
Well, I witnessed the impact of changing. So I went to Villa Montessori until third grade, and then my parents moved, and then that Montessori only went to third grade, so there was no choice. Get out. But I didn't know how to read, and so I went into the third grade again in a public school. I was bigger, older, all that sort of stuff, but now I was like dumber, and they didn't understand why I was in high math and low reading. Because in Montessori, they let you learn. At the time, they would let you learn at your own rate, and I could learn certain things very fast, but I was dyslexic, and it was before they knew what to do with that, so I had this high-low discrepancy. So that rift between a very nurturing school environment, regardless of how they taught, I felt safe there. And then when I went to the public school, to me, the hit was, man, it was pretty insulting. It just felt like I was not getting the reassurances that I need. And the scar that I remember is my high math teacher was also my low reading teacher. This used to drive her nuts. And she was like, how can you be so good in math and an idiot in reading? 55, I remember that.
Yeah.
That energy is a log in here somewhere. Imagine all the shit that's held on to in my life from one teacher that was careless. I mean, this is what the emotion code does, is it kind of goes back to those things.
Yeah.
And it's like, flashlight, that could have caused depression. That could have caused anxiety, lack of self-worth, and I think it did. But it wasn't something I knew to come home and tell my mom about, to have anybody explain it away.
When did you find out that you were dyslexic? Well, how did you guys figure it out?
I don't remember.
And how does it get cured? Is it like, what do you do?
Well, I think it's always there. I don't know a lot about. I've never even read anything about dyslexia. That's funny.
You can read though.
I can read, yeah.
But what is dyslexia? Does it just...
Dyslexia, the form that I had was the transpositioning of letters.
How?
That's just what my brain...
Your brain just can't see the order of letters in the word, and it just kind of mixes them up?
Yeah.
Interesting. Sometimes when I used to read, because I don't read anymore, anyway, I would read line by line, and I would just get so tired, or there's a couple things that would happen, but the one I was going to bring up is my vision would jump between the lines, and it would just like shake everything, and I just can't, where am I? Like, I can't see. That's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, imagine a little earthquake, but in your vision on the lines of the book. And I just couldn't see where I'm at and what I'm reading. And I'd have to like close my eyes, like reset and be like, okay, I'm right here, and go back. And a lot of the times I would just completely blank and think of something of my own, but I would continue reading on like automated level, like automatically but I'm not retaining any information that I read.
Right, you're just seeing, yeah.
It's ADD, ADHD.
Well, I wonder, because I grew up with books, you didn't so much. You were in the computer. You had computer.
It was a little bit of both. I mean, 97 is when I was born, and I definitely did read as a kid. I had a lot of like children's books, you know. I had a dictionary for some reason, and I like read stuff there. But the computers didn't come around until I was like 6, 7, 8. And I was not allowed a lot of time behind a computer.
Well, computers didn't come around for me for 30.
Right. Yes, you're right.
So not really. It's different. It's different. But the readings, I don't know. There's probably somebody out there that immediately goes, "Oh, that's the blah 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 blah. That's a symptom of so and so." Or I don't have that insight. For me, if we get back to the energy of a problem, there's also the energy of a solution, or the transitioning, the transmutation. What's the word here? Something that is taking that energy and it becomes something else. What does that? It's different for different people. You know, you have the garden, you put in fertilizer, and there's other people say, no, don't use fertilizer. It's not good for...
It's not natural.
It's not natural. It's like, you just need worms. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any worms. You know, well, maybe it's true. There's a lot of different approaches. Your solution that sticks for you is going to be different than what sticks for someone else.
What if certain things only work because you believe in them? I have a crazy physics experiment. Particles. If particles are not observed while going through slits, they go all over the place. But if particles are observed while going through the slits, they only leave the trace of where the slits are. So imagine I'll take that vent and I put it on a wall and I'll paint through it. When you move the vent, you're going to see each slit of the vent painted on a wall. But if you're not observing it, it's going to paint the whole thing as if the vent is not even there. Therefore, if you believe in certain idea, again, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but so certain things might only work if they're believed in. And if they don't believe, it's not going to work, like fertilizer. Some people believe in it, some people don't. And
well, other people say it's up to the soil to believe
right,
it.
And if people who don't believe in the fertilizer don't use it, and it still works for them just as great. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, so a couple things. With plants, there are people who talk to plants, play music for plants, and have a relationship with plants. And then there's farmers, the commercial farmers are like, oh, you know, too much nitrogen in the soil, and they just, you know, kind of take the chemical approach. The scale issues. What you were talking about, I couldn't visualize what you were saying, but I had two thoughts about it.
Okay.
One is a movie that was made maybe 20 years ago called What the Bleep, and it's about thought. What the Bleep.
Oh, okay.
It's an introduction to metaphysics and thoughts as things, that thoughts are actual, impactful things. And quantum mechanics is coming around to that, you know, observing an experiment is influencing the experiment.
Right.
And so I believe that that's true. I think that the difference is some thoughts just are not strong. You can have a stronger thought and a lesser thought, and there are probably different impacts on them. But the subconscious mind is what's really making, it's like the thought origin, that's the font. That's the quality of your thought, that's the strength of your thought. If you have a thought in your mind, it's like, I can fly. Your subconscious is like, I don't think so. That's a conflict.
Right. But if your subconscious and your thought align,
I don't know. Flying would be pretty tough. I don't know that the subconscious.
You never know.
I don't know. To me, it sounds pretty out there in in that example, because I think that that's more of a vibrational alignment than a subconscious alignment. For someone to levitate or to direct their energy, their chi, you know, to start fires or things like this, and I've seen those things, but not in person, so I don't know. But it kind of makes sense. I'm like, well, you know, a laser focuses. So what focuses a person's thoughts to direct their energy? And there are people that can, you know, I played this experiment at the airport where I was standing in a lot of lines, and I'm like, I wonder if my thoughts can mess with this person in front of me. And so it didn't, but I was thinking about it, and I thought, years ago, Don was talking about how to expand your physical senses beyond your physical senses. And he would say, when you're walking, use your imagination and feel the ground in front of you with your hands. Feel the texture and the heat of the asphalt, the gravel, the grass. And he said, you do that for a while, and it'll feel natural. The next thing is you're walking by and you pass a tree. Let your imaginary hand go feel the tree. Now, after a little while, you don't even need to imagine your hands. You can pick up, and I can project under this couch and feel the lining underneath the couch. But this is a developed sensitivity. I think that sort of movement of thought, that sort of projection of thought, projection of sensitivity has to do with our auras and our energy. But if a person is anxious or worried or fearful, developing those other things is going to be really hard, because doubt is going to come in. Self-worth is why, all these excuses, all these things. It's like, well, why would you want that? At the airport, I was just like, well, I'm just going to tug on that person's cuff, you know.
Nothing.
No, dude, I'm out of sync. Look at me, you know. I mean, I just was saying May and June, but I'm going to keep trying it. Not so because I want to.
You're going to go back.
No, just in general, I'm starting to. When I walk outside, I look to remember connecting with the earth. I don't do it because I wear shoes all the time, and I don't even think about it, because the less I feel the ground, the safer I feel my feet are. They're not going to get burned. They're not going to step on a thorn or a nail or something like this. So that's like, good, I'm covered. Well, maybe I'm covering myself in all these other ways, thinking that it's safer to be covered because I don't want something poking at me. So gradually, I need to take off these shoes. I need to take off these hyper filters that I was taught were really necessary. That's kind of where I was going with that. It's like, oh, maybe I've deadened my senses because someone said that's what you should do. The less I feel the ground, the safer I feel my feet are. They're not going to get burned. They're not going to step on a thorn or a nail or something like this. So that's like, good, I'm covered. Well, maybe I'm covering myself in all these other ways, thinking that it's safer to be covered because I don't want something poking at me. So gradually, I need to take off these shoes. I need to take off these hyper filters that I was taught were really necessary. That's kind of where I was going with that. It's like, oh, maybe I've deadened my senses because someone said that's what you should do.
Yes, I think a lot of us have in general, because I don't know what affects it in a way. Just society in general, right? Like, you can't go to the store barefoot. You can't drive barefoot. It's illegal. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You can't do certain things, but why? Because the society decided you can't.
Right.
But maybe it is some sort of like theory.
But you can. You just evaluate the consequence.
Right.
Potential consequence.
But what if they said it because it could unleash the power of the earth?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Fear is a great controller. I mean, there's a lot of institutions that use that fear and lack to push people a certain way. It's very easy. I watched this show the other day. This was tremendous to me. I love automatons. Do you know what those are? They are almost right out of medieval times. They started building these clocks, and they were these automated Swiss mechanisms, and the bird would chirp, and they were like early robots, right?
Okay, yeah.
The beginning of the show, the guy was explaining how they came about, and he said in that day and age there were the people that own the land, the rich and the poor. And there's a bunch of kind of merchanty type of people in between, workers. And they had just started having these towns instead of everybody living scattered. So they had this main center, but it was chaos. And so the aristocracy, put up clocks. Now they have established rhythm. Everybody hears that clock go off at 12. Oh, the business opens at the first ding-dong at 6. So now the time was the first form of control. I didn't even know that. I had never even heard that philosophy, that people didn't measure time before in the way in a city.
Right.
Think of the chaos that there would be without time. The red lights, the green lights.
Oh, right now? Oh my God, you can't even...
So it's gotten worse.
It's a man-made thing.
Right, so 9 to 5, do you work 9 to 5 or 8 to 4? In this culture, those are the, first shift, second shift, third shift.
Yeah.
And so it's very subtle, because now we don't even think of time as but man, I'm a slave to it, you know?
I think all of us are.
Well,
time.
You got to be careful about projecting everybody into statements. You can just say...
Most of us.
You can just say me. You can just say, I feel like it, I'm aware of it, and I see it around me. But that grabbing grabbing a whole planet with you, that is, you'll hear it all the time. You'll hear people talking and says, well, you know, when you walk down the street and you touch the so-and-so, I'm like, I didn't walk down the street. What are you talking about?
I see. So
when I walk down the street, when I touch, it's otherwise it's a disembodied voice. You're you. People say, you know what it's like when you're driving down the street and then someone crashes into you and then you know when you. And I'm like, no.
Well, it's people's attempt to connect with you in some way because a variety of experiences someone experiences can fit with a lot of other people the same way. So I'm like, you know, when you're outside in the winter and your hands are cold and you come home and you wash your hands in warm water, it feels really good. You do know that, right? Come on.
Yes. I'm just saying that if it's that for everything,
right,
then there's this expectation that the you is aligned with me. Mm-hmm. And that's not always the case. So I try to say I as often as possible. When I realize that I'm slipping into a projection about so-and-so, you'll hear me go, well, my own experience has been, or my own thing. Because I don't want to like mess on someone's rug, you know, this is just my take.
Yeah.
It's not anything else than that. So, but the time is control, fear is control, all that stuff is common thoughts. But the idea about how this ties into the subconscious is if a person's subconscious mind is following all these rules and doesn't realize it's following all, this is why some people thrive and some people don't. It's like, oh, maybe there's a rule in there, there's a switch that says money is bad to me. Your conscious mind is like, oh, money's good, but somewhere along the line someone said money is bad to you, and that's what stuck. So maybe there's this is cross-manifestation that we talked about. Mm-hmm. What's happening in the conscious mind and what's happening in the subconscious mind. So once those are aligned, and then there's a superconsciousness mind, which people talk about, connection to spirit, the clarity. All of those things in alignment is when manifestation happens fast. You know, I'm not there yet. I'm putting some effort into it, which is ironic because my friends around me who are spiritual are saying, why are you trying so hard? They're like, just settle into it. And I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. We don't settle. We push, we bulldog into it. And she's like, how's that working for you? I'm like, well, it's exhausting, isn't it?
Sure is.
Because I got old programming. Motherfucker.
Is there a way to reprogram yourself?
Well, I don't know, but there's other people reprogram people all the time, I think.
Do you think psychology is part of that?
No, I just mean culturally. I mean, the friends and family you're around, the TV shows that you watch, the political groups that you believe in, anything that feeds something that you already believe a little bit it becomes a reinforcement. And so if I believe in one thing and then I surround myself with people that believe in that thing, it's really going to get momentum. That's why Don would always say the subconscious mind will serve you positively or negatively because it doesn't know the difference. It's just serving you what you are creating, what you're thinking. It will give you want shit sandwich, it'll give you shit sandwich. You want caviar, it'll give you caviar. Just say what you want, so to speak, in the form of a thought.
What if you want both? Or like, say, I just thought about myself, and in the way that you described that, the more you're surrounded by the people that believe in a certain thing that you believe in, it just reinforces your idea. I am, in some aspects of beliefs, unsure of what to believe in. Point one, or point A or point B, like one thing or the other thing.
Well,
and I do have people around me that believe in one thing more than the other, and the other more than the one. And here I have reinforcements coming from different directions, from different perspectives. And I'm still like, oh, that makes sense. I want to believe in this. But also this makes sense. I want to believe in this. You know what I'm like? How do you choose? How do you deal with that?
You know, my opinion is that it's just part of like growing. Mm-hmm. So let's say that I'm in a particular church. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm not going to be there my whole life.
Because, yeah, you've talked about it.
Because that understanding or my desire for more of something has shifted it. And this is why people in your life will change.
Yeah.
It's not just proximity, because you can still be close to somebody and not really vibe with them anymore. Mm-hmm. But I get what you're saying about why I want both. People that are curious-minded have that issue because they're
Yes.
like, oh, I want to, let me tell you, have you seen a kid at the soda fountain?
Yes, I was that kid.
They can't decide.
I was that kid. I
It's
remember.
like, I want it all right now, and if I don't take that now, I'm going to miss my opportunity. And yet you put them all together and it just tastes like hell.
Literally a couple of weeks ago, we were at Culver's for lunch, and I saw a kid as we were leaving that just did every single little thing. And Kay and I were just laughing, or whoever I was with, I'm not quite remember.
I did it.
I'm not sure. But I did it. I remember being like 7, 8. I like remember the time, a specific time. I was bowling with friends for someone's birthday, and I had like Fanta, like orange soda, whatever. And then I took something else and I added into it, and I don't know if I drank it. It looked weird, but I felt like mixing it.
A couple of things that I think about with that is one is impulse control, two is decision making. Kids don't get to make a lot of decisions that involve adult equipment.
Right.
And that is adult equipment that you get to reach up to.
Yes.
I don't know why, sidebar, I'll drink a large soda.
Yeah.
But I'm 225 pounds almost. I see a kid drinking a large drink. I mean, that's like a 55-gallon drum that I would drink proportionally.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're nailing that kid's nervous system.
Oh,
I mean, that is just sucrose, corn syrup, all sorts of stuff. But anyways, decision making. When you're interested in a lot of things, how do you be focused? How do you address your time? And I think that this is where impulse control is a big deal. The psychologists that define, borderline, it's a condition. They'll say, oh, that person has borderline, blah, blah, blah. And it just means that, well, I'm simplifying. It roughly means that they have trouble making decisions with a lot of thought. And it's like, oh, they're going to get purple hair. But not only purple hair, they're going to go with green hair. And then they're going to get tattoo. And then they're going to get tattoo here. And then they're going to get... It's so wrapped up in the moment that they don't think about after the moment. And there's a spiritual beauty to that, about living in the moment. But I also think there's a heavy price to pay if those thoughts and decisions that they're making have really heavy consequences. So if I have usually impulse control happens if you're, under the influence. And you're drunk, I'm drunk, and I go get a face tattoo. And I go to work the next day. And I'm a sales guy. And I had an overseas trip planned.
You don't look like your documents anymore.
I'm not going to be able to make that trip. People get tangled up in things. Depression, anxiety is a part of that tangle because it keeps, I think, a person away from making those decisions from a healthy perspective. If I'm really depressed, how can I make a good decision in who I'm choosing to spend my time with? It's not quality soil. I'm not going to make.
You're saying it impacts your decisions in a negative way?
I think it absolutely can. If I'm really mad at somebody, let's use mad as negative.
Yeah.
And I go into a bar and I start fighting with everybody, but I needed to be home by 8.
You're not home by 8. You're in jail.
Because I made a bad decision. Because I was mad. And what I needed was to exercise my anger. So I went and did something that exercised that, and it wasn't a good decision. So I think that depression and anxiety, and I have it too. I get anxious about things. I get depressed about things. And I know in my quality of thought, I may decide I'm not going to meditate today. One day, it's no big deal. 2, 3 days, 2 months, look at me. I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, I'm rubbing my nose. And that's a light price to pay.
Yeah.
Thoughts matter.
Thoughts do matter.
Thoughts are free. What the hell? Why? The one thing that's free and could be so abundantly used is so easy to not. It's taken for granted because for me, myself, is I like things right away. I grew up with that. I still suffer it.
Not everyone, but many people, myself included, I want things fast. I'm impatient. I had experience with my little brother recently, very impatient. He bought pieces for upgrading his bicycle into electric bike, but he didn't get like the last couple pieces for the whole kit. He's like, let's do it, I want to do it, let's try taking everything apart, let's do it now. I'm like, you gotta wait, you gotta test everything, make sure everything works before taking everything apart and putting it onto the bicycle. But I get that. A lot of people want things now.
What came to mind at that point was I spent decades building things. And I know things take time to build because I
Yes.
did that a lot. And yet, there's a part of me that understands that, and so I give that to someone else. I'm like, this is going to take time. I know I've been there. There's a lot of things that I don't have any experience with that I can remember that I don't know how long it takes. I never remodeled a stage before. I tried upstairs, a little different. There's a lot of nevers. And so my timeline is, as an expert, I know it's like this. And because I'm expert at it, my timeline is compressed. So now all of a sudden, I think my expert timeline should translate into everything. If I wanted to learn to paint, I should start as an expert. It's this total dysmorphia of...
You can't, yeah.
Yeah. And so I wonder about that. I realize that I'm doing this a lot. I have my teeth in.
You have your teeth in. I hope you do.
No, the Invisalign.
I know what you mean.
And I skipped that set, so this one's like really achy. And I'm like, I should have pulled it out.
Yeah.
Because now, it's going to look like I'm tense.
You're fine.
It's like boxers, they get the...
Yeah, whole thing.
At least nobody's punching me while I wear these. That's a good thing.